Hey folks, the producer of The Producers, Tom Viertel. I want to ask you a question. Do people ever come up to you and go, "You're the producer of The Producers"?
Yeah, once in a while.
Once in a while.
Yeah,
but I mean,
it's 20 years ago, you know? I mean...
But it's a big, famous play.
Oh, yeah, big time.
I mean, it's one of my favorites.
Most Tony Awards in history. Still.
It's amazing, right? And it's still one of my favorites. I've always wanted to play Max Bialy's stock. Now, let me ask you a question.
I always wanted to meet Mel Brooks.
Here. Are you anything like Max Bialy's stock?
Geez, I hope not. You know, for years, though, we used to joke whenever we come across a real tough problem in the business, what would Max do?
What would Max
do?
That's
great.
You know,
we all think we learned producing from Max Bialy's stock, and you know, it's hard not to think that. That character is...
He really does stand out. Let me see, any little old ladies out there? That's not real.
I find him.
You find them. Okay, you heard it here, folks. I love the fact that Broadway is so flourishing right now. I thank people like you. What should a young person who's looking to get into being a Broadway producer think? How should they start?
They should start by going to every show they can get themselves into, on Broadway, off Broadway, out of town, all over the country. Go to London if you can. Put yourself into theater. Make yourself, know what theater is. Get excited by the things you get excited by. Not everything's going to appeal to everybody. So when you go to the theater, figure out what's really getting your juices going. You'll never be able to maintain and carry on a Broadway career if you don't have a real passion for what you're doing, because it's hard work. It's not a huge payday for the most part. So you've got to love it. And so getting to know what you love, I think that's really important. That way, when you're thinking about producing something, you can look at it before it's up on stage and say, am I going to love this if it comes out right? Because if I'm not, you should stay away from it.
How many Broadway productions have you been involved in your career?
I would guess probably 50 to 60. I don't count them.
Incredible.
But we've done a lot of off-Broadway productions, a lot of Broadway productions, a lot of tours, some stuff in Australia, a lot of stuff in London, bringing it back and forth. It's one of the great fun things about theater. You get to move around, you get to see a lot of places, you get to meet a lot of wonderful people too.
Now, as far as this long career of producing, how did you even get into producing? What was that moment where you said, I want to produce?
There never was a moment where I said I wanted to produce. I grew up going to the theater. My family goes back a couple of generations, sort of near the theater, if not in the theater. And I'd never thought of I always thought my place in the theater would be like in row R. That was where I was
watching it.
And then I went out, but I'd always had an interest in what went on backstage. And I was, middle-aged. I went out, took my family out to the Olympics in Los Angeles in 1984. And my brother, by then, was actually a theater critic out there, and he said to me, there's these pair of guys that do comedy and magic, and they're like nothing you've ever seen. Just, go and have a good time. They're playing in a 50-seat room above a discotheque at the time. And I took my family out, and they were not only hilarious and brilliant, but they had an approach to the whole thing that was like nothing you'd ever seen. So I went backstage and I said to them, would you guys like to come to New York? And it just sort of out of a clear blue sky. I hadn't planned it. I wasn't thinking about it. And I figured, how hard could it be to pack up two guys in a box of tricks and bring them to New York? And they sent me back to New York to meet a guy who actually had an option to bring him to New York. And we made a deal, me and him and my real estate partner in the real estate business, to bring them to New York and put them off Broadway. And that's what we did. The show was a huge smash, now 35 years ago. A comedy magic team called Penn and Teller.
Yep.
Now the longest running headline act in Las Vegas, but they weren't then. Nobody knew who they were then.
Totally unique act.
Unique guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything my brother Jack said about them was absolutely true. And we went on producing Penn and Teller shows for quite a while we began to do other stuff as well. And we produced them on Broadway as recently as, 4 or 5 years ago.
That's right, I remember.
We're hoping to bring them back again.
Oh, that would be
That's
wonderful.
a career-long relationship. You don't get those every day.
That's an incredible, incredible story.
Yeah.
Tom, I want to thank you. For you young folks out there who want to get into the theater, CTI, would CTI be a good place for them?
When you want to find out what the nuts and bolts of it are, and when you want to meet working producers, CTI, the Commercial Theater Institute, is a great place to go. We have a course in March that's a 3-day introduction to producing for Broadway. And even if you're not ready to produce for Broadway,
you learn a lot.
Learn a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2.5 days of concentrated information and people talking to you who are the people who are doing Broadway these days. So you can learn a lot. It's open enrollment. If you go to the website commercialtheatreinstitute.com, you can see all of that. And as I say, the main thing is just get to a lot of theater. Get to know what you love.
Folks, have people take you to theater. Take people to theater. Tom, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. And what's next for you? What's your next big production that maybe you would like to announce?
We're starting a new musical based on the spectacularly successful musical movie Back to the Future. That starts in Manchester, England in a month, and it moves to London and then hopefully to New York.
That's fabulous. Hey folks, Roger Gonzalez, LocalTheatreNY.tv. Go to the theater. It's where theater lives.